All right, good morning, y'all. Make sure we're going to get this in our journals. So go to your table of contents. Quadratics is the most important topic that you're going to learn. In terms of what teachers, universities, etc. will expect you to know when you're done with Algebra 2. Okay, I'm on page 32. Just make it whatever your next empty page is. Make sure you put your name at the top. And then let's get into it. First, you got to know what a quadratic is. This is the format for a quadratic. Notice that you have x squared, then an x term, then just a number. Now, a, b, and c just represent constants, which can be any number. Notice that the largest exponent you're going to see is a 2, which means that there could be 2 solutions. Now, these ones, you've already solved these before. We're just trying to get that r squared alone. So I'm going to isolate the term. This reduces to just plain 4. Take the square root. You have r equals plus or minus 2. You've already done these ones. Pretty simple. Negative 172. I don't expect you to know what this is off the top of your head, so just grab a calculator. Doesn't reduce, so then we do the square root process. Oh, actually, you'll notice if I do the square root, see how there's a negative inside the square root? We're not allowed to have that, which means this is no solution. It's possible to get no solution. Okay, we're going to go ahead and get this x squared alone. Once we have that x squared alone, we go ahead and take the square root to get rid of square. And 67 doesn't simplify at all. So that's as good as it gets. We're going to go ahead and get the x squared alone. We're going to see if this reduces. It does. I'm going to go ahead and take the square root. I'm going to give myself just a little bit of space. I'm actually going to do it over here. I know that it's going to be x equals plus or minus something. 4 and 12, 4 and 3. Circle and kill. So it's 4 square root 3. That one's the answer. Plus or minus 4 square root 3. So this should have been a review. You should already know how to do this. Make sure you're showing the work on these kinds of problems. And now we're getting into much more interesting kinds of questions. we're going to start with understanding the process. So let's start with some simple questions. 5 times what equals 0? Well, there's really only one thing that could work. 5 times 1 is 5. 5 times 2 is 10. 5 times -1 is -5. 5 times a half is 2.5. Well, none of this is going to work. The only thing that will work is if this is a 0. 5 times 0. The only way to get 0 through multiplication is if one of the numbers is 0. So either this group right here, this is called a binomial because you have 2 terms. Either that group is 0 or this group is 0. So we just account for both options. We take the first, this is called a factor. These are 2 factors. We're going to go ahead and set each one of those equal to 0. And then solve both of those independently. Make sure you have these labeled as factors. We just add 3, divide by 7. That's one of my answers. Because this is a quadratic, which means the power would be 2, I'm going to have 2 answers. Okay, we've got 2 answers. You just do that for all of them. Set this group to 0. Now notice this side had to be 0 for this to work. If this side isn't 0, you have to do a whole bunch of other steps. But for today, we're giving you easy practice. Make sure you're paying attention to the signs. Again, we're going to set this group to 0 and this group to 0. We want to get that n by itself, so we're going to do the opposite operation. Set the group to 0, set the factor to 0. Opposite operations to solve. These should be fairly easy. We're going to go to an intermediate today. So this is level 1. Notice that there's going to be 7 levels of just factoring quadratics. Quadratics is a huge unit. It counts for 6 of the 12 pages of TEKS. The first step is going to be GCF. Now we've been working on GCF for 4 weeks. So you should know it stands for greatest, common, factor. So we're looking, what can I take out of both of these? Well, I can think of this as n times n. Notice, I could take an n out of both of those. Also, this has to be 0 before you start factoring. So if you have something on this side, you've got to move it over here till that's 0 before you start. So I'm going to take, these are gone. They're outside represented by this guy. That's where this guy came from. That's my factors. Now anywhere that it's an implied multiplication, you set each part equal to 0. So this implies multiplication right here. So you're going to set n equal to 0 and n plus 2 equals to 0. Well, this one's already solved. That's easy cheese. Subtract. Now you should be able to easily see that if I plugged in 0, I'd get 0. And if I plug in -2, I'd have 4 take away 4, which is 0. Same concept here. This is like an x times x. I'm going to take the x out of both of them. Set each factor equal to 0. Have 2 factors. Now here, I'm going to need to break these down a little bit. So I'm thinking of 30 as 5 times 6, 2 times 6. And I can take 6x out of both of those. So I'm going to take 6x, set it equal to 0. 5x minus 2, set it equal to 0. Just divide by 6, x equals 0. Plus the 2, divide by 5. Got our answer. Same idea here. 5 times 7. 7 times 7. The biggest thing that's in both groups is your 7n. What's left over is what stays inside. I should be able to multiply this back and get the same thing. So that's always an easy check. 7n equals 0. Divide by 7. Minus 7. And you're done. Make sure you glue this in your journal so you don't lose it. Make sure you're showing all your work in your journal. I would definitely label the assignment. There will be multitudes of quadratic assignments. Make sure you're keeping it neat. Good luck.